What's going on, guys? Gainz Gaming here, and today we are talking about investing into siege or engineering commanders in Rise of Kingdoms in 2025, and at what point should you consider investing into siege. Now, if you are new here, I did recently invest into ranged combat very recently. You can see this was in March, the end of March of 2025, when I maxed out Gaja, and then if I take a look at my Gonzalo, we maxed him out on January 9th. So a little bit earlier, but I did fully invest into siege with 2 maxed commanders as of March of 2025. So very, very recently. Now, I did also invest pretty heavily into siege equipment. This was not cheap. This was very, very expensive. I actually ran out of materials and was thankfully able to invest into a Delaine's amulet to not leave this blank, but I spent a ton of materials to get this set. Now, at what point should you consider investing into ranged? Now, to give you kind of an overall picture of my account, I'll show you what I have for my other marches. So I run a good mix of everything. I have 2 infantry. This is my first infantry set for my Luce, and then this is my second set with my Ragnar Prime. Then I run 2 cavalry. This is my first set with Alexander Nevsky, and then my second set with Hukabing. And finally, I run 1 archer pair. Here is my Zeuge with the current equipment I have on here. And so I think this really depends on your spending level. So if you're a lower spender, it's going to differ. If you're free to play, it's very going to be different. If you're a whale, again, it can be very different. But for your average player, that's going to be a lower spend. I would say your siege march should be your 4th march at the very earliest. The reason why I say that is because you should have 3 open field pairings before you start investing into siege. And ideally, that would be either 1 of each troop type, so 1 infantry, 1 cav, 1 archer. This way, you're able to get a good mix of the meta commanders. Or if you really like infantry, you can go 2 infantry, 1 cavalry. If you really like cavalry, you can go 2 cavalry and 1 infantry. I would not recommend going 2 archers. I don't think that's ideal. And if you want to go heavier into infantry, definitely pair that with cavalry and vice versa. Do not go 2 infantry and 1 archer. I would not recommend that, and vice versa. I would not recommend 2 cavalry and 1 archer. I would try to make everything consistent. Don't go for archers if you're a free-to-play player or a low spender, unless you are running 1 of each troop type. That is kind of my bias against archers. I don't think they are phenomenal investments in Rise of Kingdoms, simply because they are super, super slow. They're a first priority target. Yes, they do a lot of damage, they get you a lot of kills, but they take a ton of severed wounds. So you want to be wary when it comes to investing in archers, especially as a free-to-play player or a low spender player, because they are going to take a ton more damage. Now, again, for the average player, I would say that your 4th march could be a good investment for your engineering. And the reason why is because you want to have a good solidified base of what you are using in the open field, because a majority of what you're doing is fighting in the open field. You're not able to use engineering all the time. So you want to have a good foundation, a good base of where you are starting at. So for me, I would say that a good base would be Luce and BQ as your infantry. You can go Hukabing and Arthur, or Hukabing and Joan Prime for your cavalry. And then if you want to go archers, you can go Zhujiang and Herman Prime for your archers, and then invest into your Gaja, Mata, and Gonzalo. That is probably what I would recommend as of right now in May of 2025. Now, you could throw in Philip somewhere, you could throw in Scipio Prime, you could throw in Nevsky. There's a whole lot of variability that you can throw into here depending on what you prefer. But what I said previously is what I would personally recommend for myself, at least if I were doing this. But Gaja, Mata, and Gonzalo is by far going to be your #1 priority when it comes to investing into siege, because Gonzalo is going to make sure that you are hitting AoE targets. He is the only ranged commander that has AoE, and he hits up to 3 enemy troops in a circle, which is huge in the open field. He is especially good in the altar fights because everything is bunched up and you're typically not getting hit in the ruins, and so you're going to trade really, really, really well in the ruins, and especially at passes. But if you're in the open field, they're not going to trade as well because you're much more likely to get swarmed down. And that is why Gaja is a very good commander, because he is going to be very tanky. He's going to deal more ranged smite damage, more normal damage. He's going to be healing you as well, keeping you alive. So he is a must use as well. I think Gaja with Gonzalo is by far right now the best option for your ranged combat for running 1 march, and which is why I have them both invested into. Now, if you're thinking, well, engineering trades really, really well, so what if I want to lean heavier into engineering? By all means. Like, for example, I run an account, my Gainz Pew Pew, that is fully engineering. I have 4 ranged marches on here. I'll even show you what I'm running on this account just to kind of give you a good understanding of what it would look like to run fully ranged combat. Now, I will preface, this is not ideal. And in my opinion, running fully ranged is really, really hard, especially in the open field, because you are most likely going to get swarmed down quite more often. And for me, in this lower seed kingdom, I definitely get swarmed down a lot more than I was hoping for. So with this account, I have much worse gear, obviously, because it was a farm account, but I have basically every single option you can run for engineering. I have all 8 commanders that I'm able to use. Now, they aren't all maxed out. They aren't fantastic, but like Steven, I have 5111. I have my John at 5511, but then I have everyone else expertised. So I'm hoping by this next KVK, I can get some more heads into both John and Steven, but like it isn't ideal. And right now in this kingdom, I do get swarmed down a lot more often than I would like, but you certainly can run full ranged combat. Now, again, it's not going to be as good as running a good mix of open field commanders and then some ranged, but in my opinion, you absolutely can. And you can look at Mr. Siege as well. He makes fantastic content for full ranged accounts. So if that is something that you want to consider, you certainly can, but it isn't going to be the best case scenario. However, you absolutely can do it. And one thing I will mention as well is that a lot of kingdoms, when you're fighting in the open field, will actually put markers, no siege. They do not want you using siege in certain circumstances because you're basically chasing kill points is what they're looking at it as. And so a lot of kingdoms will kick you if you're using ranged combat when they're telling you not to. 1846 has done that many, many times. And I will preface, like I have to tell our leadership, hey, I'm running 5 open field marches and my 1 ranged. I'm not only using ranged, I'm using 5 open field marches as well. So I'm not just trying to mooch kill points and not take 7 wounds and just get really good trades on my ranged. I am still fighting all 5 marches in the open field. And sometimes you have to prove that and say like, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. I'm still contributing in the open field. I'm still, pushing with the ball, but I'm also using my range because otherwise it's just sitting on the bench and not doing anything. So it really changes in every kingdom you're in. But for a lot of Imperium kingdoms, they do have pretty strict limits on when you can and cannot use ranged combat, which is something that you should be aware of before you start investing into ranged. Because in some situations, you might think, oh, I can use ranged here. And then there's a marker that says no ranged. So it really is going to be different for every single kingdom. So you have to know what your kingdom is going to be doing and what they want you to be doing. Because again, you have to listen to leadership. If they tell you we don't want using range in this situation, you use range and you get kicked out and then you get swarmed or you get zeroed or whatever, I don't want to be held liable for that. I am not liable for that. So make sure you ask your kingdom, your leadership, what they want you to do with your ranged combat. If they want you invested into range, sometimes different kingdoms will have actually group chats for your ranged commanders or your ranged accounts, I should say. So again, ask your leadership. Every kingdom is going to be different, so you want to make sure you understand fully what you're getting into before you start investing into ranged combat. But again, I think after you have a good foundation of what your marches should look like for the open field, whether that's 1 of each troop type, 2 infantry, 1 cav, 2 cavs, 1 infantry, even if you want to start it with your 3rd march, it really is going to differ for every single person. So if you have any questions, comment them down below. If you have any recommendations for people that are considering this, comment down below what you think, and that way we can get some dialogue on what people use for their current range, because everyone's doing things differently. It is a pretty new way of fighting in Rise of Kingdoms, so everything is kind of nuanced at this point. So I'm curious to see what you guys think. Thank you again for checking out this video. If you want to see more Rise of Kingdoms content, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, completely free for you, helps me out tremendously. Again, I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you guys in the next video.